Hello everybody, welcome back to Red Tool House. In this video I want to talk about the Suscovich chicken tractor plans and how we modified those to best suit our homestead. Well, for those of you not aware, this chicken tractor plan that we used is based off a design by John Suscovich, and we did a review when we built the first one. This is actually the first one we built. I now have 3. And I'm actually working on the 4th one. But these plans were drawn up in John's book. It's a stress-free chicken tractor plans, 2nd edition. I'll post a link down in the description there so you can go to it on Amazon. Check that out. We like this plan compared to the Joel Salatin's plan simply because of the scalability. Our pasture, our farm is much smaller, so we don't have the ability to move the big 10 by 12s around. So these were a little bit smaller. I like the idea of being able to get in and out of them easily as well. And it just seemed to accommodate the size of our farm better. Well, John does a good job in the book describing step by step the materials you need, the tools you need, how to build it. But as I got into building it, there were certain things that, just preferential things, that we wanted to change. Not huge deviations, but just slight things that we wanted to change. So we wanted to highlight those. Well, one of the most obvious and more of aesthetic change is the tarps. John calls for a specific size tarp. You can see it in the book. But as we built the tractors, we were playing with what we've got, of course, as far as tarps go, what we had options for, and the sizes. This first one was a little bit undersized, but I really like the ventilation I get from it. I noticed when the chickens are in this, they're not as hot on a hot day because there just seems to be a little bit more ventilation. The second tractor, the tarp extends the entire length, but I still wanted to make sure it was down low enough that there's still some ventilation coming through. So I've noticed if it's a still day, not a lot of wind moving, then the birds in this tractor get a little hotter, just because there's not a lot of opportunity for heat to escape out the top here. Now granted, when it's raining, if you're sleeping on this end, you're getting wet, but most of the birds obviously gravitate toward the inside there, the center, if it does rain or the weather becomes bad. Well, one of the other mods we did deals with the water system. John calls for his book, he suggests using 5-gallon buckets, like a Homer bucket or something like this, and just drilling holes in it and putting the chicken nipples in. And we've used nipples before. They got their pluses and minuses. I'm not a big fan of them. But John suspends his bucket. He puts an extra nailer board up here, a vertical board that comes up, and he suspends his buckets on the inside so he can dump water just through the screen. What we've discovered, I like the idea of using the bell waters, gravity feed bell waters. Now, obviously a little bit more expense. If you look at nipples, they're a couple bucks for a handful of them, and these bell waters are about 50 bucks a piece. So there's a bit more of an investment there, but I really like the ease of it. And we put the bucket on the outside so I can easily dump if there's some debris, like right here I've got a leaf floating around, so if I wanted to dump that out, clean that bucket out real easily, I don't have to disconnect everything, and I don't have to go inside to clean out the bucket or to make some adjustments there. And of course the height of the bucket doesn't matter either in this situation. It doesn't have to be low down for the chickens to get to, so you're bending over to make any adjustments. I can keep it up here where I can dump the water easily because it's feeding down to the hose. And instead of putting a nailer board in, I just attach it to the arch of our conduit with actually a piece of heavy gauge wire. This is actually the suspended ceiling wire that I've used in other areas, fence crossings and stuff. So it makes that pretty sturdy. When I put a full 5 gallons of water, you're looking at roughly 40 pounds there. When I put that 40 pounds on there, it handles it well. Well, another mod we made along that same line, again, since I'm relying on this arch to hold the weight of the bucket full of water, that 40 pounds, then I wanted to shore this up a little bit better. This cross conduit, again, if you read the book, there's a piece of conduit that goes all the way across that keeps the ribs in a fixed position, and he recommends using zip ties to zip those together. And I used zip ties initially to hold it in place, but I came back and I used self-tapping or self-drilling screws, and I ran one of those up through the spine here, the ridge pole, if you will. Ran it up through there to drill into this arch, and that really locked it in place, and I did the same on the other. I didn't mess with doing on every single one. I just zip tied those, but I really wanted these to be very supportive and really be able to hold that bucket. It worked out really well. And again, if you're not familiar with a self-tapping screw or self-drilling screw, these things are pretty handy to have. It's almost like they've got a little mini drill bit there. I don't know if that's showing up on the camera or not. Yeah, so a mini drill bit there that cuts into your metal, and man, you can really dog some stuff down with that. So those are real handy to have. Well, one other slight modification that we did when it comes to the wheels, and again, this really deals with the volume, the number of tractors you have and what you want to mess with. In this situation, I wanted to not have to take wheels on and off. In John's scenario, if you look at his website, you'll see that he just keeps one set of wheels, and as he moves his tractors, he has quite a few, maybe 10 or more. As he moves his tractors, then he's just putting a set of wheels on one, moving it, taking the wheels off, going to the next, moving it, and he's just sliding them on and off. He's not got them tightened down with a nut and bolt like I do. So that allows him to do that fairly quickly, but since I have a smaller number of tractors, I thought, well, let's just permanently put wheels on it. You know, wheels aren't that expensive. You're just going with solid wheels, don't anything pneumatic, don't mess with anything like that. And sometimes you can find old lawnmowers and use lawnmower wheels, something like that, that would allow you to get them cheaply and put those on. The one recommendation I'd make when it comes to wheels is, of course, determining your wheel size. I was trying some different options here. This one's coming loose pretty good. Trying some different options, and the larger the wheel, of course, the easier it is to move through the grass, but the higher lift you get on the tractor if you're going to leave them on. And that's another reason why John suggests not leaving them on, of course, is you get more lift, so there's a chance for a predator to get under or a chicken to stick its head under or whatever. So you need to take that in consideration. So this was the first set of wheels I got, and I thought, well, they're a little too big. So I moved to a smaller set, and these work better. Definitely not a lot of lift in the grand scheme of things, but it is a little tougher to move through the grass if it's rough. Our ground is pretty uneven right here, so it does become a little tricky to move through. But I like having the wheels on there permanently. I think it works out well. Well, probably one of my favorite modifications is simply in the fasteners. Again, we've got a lot of chicken wire or hardware cloth to attach to this frame to be able to enclose it and do all that. You want to put the hardware cloth all the way around. And John suggests using staples. And again, you go with the tools you have. I'm not saying that was not a good idea, but you go with what you have. But in my experience, especially, we milled a lot of our lumber. So this is poplar and pine here. And the poplar, especially as it dries out, it becomes pretty hard. It's tough to put a staple in. So what I actually had a lot of these left over from our house construction. But these are Grip-Rite fasteners. Again, I'll try to get close to the camera here. You can see it has this plastic head on it. It's basically just a nail, so you just hammer it in, but that plastic has a little bit of a lip underneath it. So as that hammers down and that head gets hammered in, it makes that flex out, and it really becomes very grippy, hence the name Grip-Rite. But it's a really good way to tack that down, and you can really get a nice hold. I mean, you can kind of see where I've drug it, and it's jerking the wire up, but it still hasn't broken the fasteners off. And these are really inexpensive, and it obviously doesn't take a specialty tool. You don't have to have a staple gun, the electric staple gun, manual staple gun. You can think of click, click, click all the times. And to me, I think it holds more. Holds better. You're going to have to put more staples in per square foot than you would these Grip-Rite nails. And you can just get these at box stores. They work out pretty well, and they've held up well too. They do start to fade. You can see over here on these, they're not as orange. They start to fade, but I haven't had any break away. And of course, if you would have a couple come loose or a head pop off, then you can easily just reapply. Since I think I got a box of 1,000, so there's a ton of them there. So that was a nice way to attach the chicken wire. Well, the last modifications were really just basic hardware stuff. Nothing really critical. Again, it's just a matter of choice what you have access to. But probably the biggest thing is the trough. John recommends building one out of PVC. Again, I have a bunch of wood around at the wood shop, so I made the trough out of wood. The big thing is, and he recommends it as well, is just make sure it's suspended. That way, if everything's hanging, you don't have to go in there every time you move, pick something up, get it out, move the tractor, and then put it back, of course. So it had the benefit of hanging. Now I just used, again, if you've watched my videos over time, I have a ton of that 17 gauge electric fence wire we use for the pig pasture. So we have a ton of this, and that's what I use to suspend the trough. and even the water are back there. So it gives us the ability to have a real sturdy way to hang that trough up there. And you can see even the chickens like to hang out underneath it. Other simple changes are just fasteners. These screen door latches, I like using those. The treated wood we get around here curls up like a piece of bacon as it dries out, so I have to put double latches on because this door would bow out so badly. A single latch predator could be able to squeeze in there. And one other mod in these newer tractors, and we'll see if this ends up biting me in the butt, is I really don't like buying treated lumber, but you have to do what you have to do sometimes. John recommended building the whole thing out of treated, and this one is. But for the sake of using material and using what you've got, I decided I was just going to do the bottom in treated. So the actual bottom frame, everything that touches the ground is treated. Now the door facing is treated because the 1x6s, or these little 1x4 that you need to make the door frame, those are so cheap. Most mine treated, like, yeah, just go ahead and buy them. But everything else is either old 2x4 material or stuff that we've milled. The sides are poplar that we've milled. And it's not treated. If it was poplar on the ground on a regular basis, then it would rot out pretty quickly because it doesn't like being on the ground. But I'm curious to see how this holds up. We'll see. This one's obviously got a year ahead of this one. This is all treated, and this is just partially treated. But we'll see how these hold up over time and see. It may be a mistake not doing it all out of treated, but again, I'd rather not buy treated, and the treated you seem to get anymore isn't that good a quality anyway as far as longevity goes. I really like this construction of tractor. The build out is very simple. With some help, it doesn't take very long. The material cut list is pretty basic. You don't need a lot of carpentry skills to pull it off. The only specialty tool you really need is the conduit bender if you're going to use the conduit. So you can rent that, or I purchased one. It was $45. I figured if we're going to be making a bunch of these, why not go ahead and own that? It's not a big deal. But again, I appreciate John and his work, and ask you to support his efforts if you like this plan. It's kind of cool to see a farmer, a young guy, get something started like that and have success with his farm, but also with his publishing. So I definitely recommend buy his book if you're interested. Again, I'll provide a link down at the bottom so you can get it on Amazon. Well, if you like this video, give it a thumbs up. If you haven't subscribed yet, be sure to subscribe and check us out every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. We do a new video 4:30 p.m. Eastern Time. And check out our website, redtoolhouse.com. All right, take care, everybody.